it was communicated to Mr. McDonald to let Colin do his magic. Will you recall, or Mr. Firth or GC Strategies do their magic? Do you recall that communication?
I do not recall that communication.
Okay. Mr. Ozwoski, do you recall that communication?
To deliberately keep information from Canadians. And for brownie points, implement a sunshine list like the vast majority of provinces. So let's put this into perspective. Imagine going to a mechanic. They tell you the bill for a simple fix is $80. Then they tell you the bill is $2,600. Then you get the final bill back, and it's $5,400, and the invoice is blacked out. You'd be outraged. But this is how taxpayers were treated with the ArriveCan app. And we demand accountability. The question for committee members now is, who is going to be held accountable for the ArriveCan scandal? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll start with Mr. Genuis for 5, or, Ms. Kusie for 6, please.
Well, Trudeau's agenda, National Caucus meeting today. The whole caucus is getting together, and he'll be in question period. So expect more announcements.
There's no other meeting that I attended with him, and I don't recollect him even being at this meeting.
All right. Mr. Ozwoski, do you still communicate with Mr. McDonald?
No.
Okay. What was the role of Mr. McDonald in obtaining the services of GC Strategies? How would you describe his role specifically? Mr. Doan?
Just a brief answer, please.
He was the Director General in charge of innovation.
Thank you, Chair.
NDP Johns, he has a bunch of questions, and it's very revealing. This whole part is... we'll have the whole version, but check this out.
They suggested the payments for the task authorization should flow through Cordax or to GC Strategies, and then finally on to Bottler. We need that information. Can I also request that through the committee?
Alex, I'm going to just stop time here for a second. Are you clear what Mr. Johns is asking for, Ms. O'Gorman?
Yes.
The documents?
And I just note that it is part of an internal investigation, and I don't know what documents exist. I have not personally been going through. I've wanted that to be independent of me.
If you could provide what Mr. Johns and the committee has asked for, and also provide us, if anything is not available, to provide us with that information and why it's not available. Thanks very much. Go ahead, Mr. Johns.
And the reasoning I'm asking for this is, funneling taxpayers' dollars through a party not even listed on a contract is of serious concern. How much did the CBSA grant in additional contracts to GC Strategies, Cordax, Dalian after the report on September 27th, 2021?
I don't have that information. Okay. I would just concur with your point about the seriousness of it and point out that I referred it to the RCMP.
Okay. Have you ever spoken with the public safety or any other minister with respect to Bottler's allegations?
After I referred it to the RCMP, I informed the Minister of Public Safety that I had done so.
When did you do that?
December 2022.
Oh, and like Lastman, that's not all. There's more to this. It carries on. So, the web.
I referred it to the RCMP. I don't want to characterize what and how the RCMP is handling it.
Mr. Doan, the 2021 report from Bottler was raised to you after it was reported to Antonio Itano, who reported it. Did he directly report that to you, that report?
Based on my memory, that was not raised to my attention.
So it was brought to him, and he did not bring that to your attention, the report?
Not to my memory.
Okay. How many projects with GC Strategies as either a contractor or subcontractor were approved under your term as CIO at the CBSA?
I can endeavor to get you that information. I've not been working with the CBSA since April, but I'll work with CBSA colleagues to get you a fulsome answer.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. And what is the total of, can you also supply the total of the above contracts as well?
I will work with colleagues to get that information.
Did you apply to your current position at TBS, or were you suggested for the role?
I was contacted by the current Government of Canada Chief Information Officer, who I'd worked with previously in my previous role at CBSA, and offered.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you very much to our witnesses for being here today. Mr. Connor, why do you think it is that the president
thank
of
you
the
for
Treasury
that. I
Board
believe
announced
in
last
her
week
press
that
conference,
after
she indicated that she will not be
report
looking at the
coming out of
matter
Ethics Committee
until
that she was not
2025
prepared to
when
make any
conveniently
changes
that
to
is expected to
the,
be the
ATIP
year
process
of
the next
why do you think
election.
that is?
My next question for you, Mr. Conacher, would be: do you
Well, I
consider
don't understand
GC
it. It certainly
strategists to
doesn't
be
comply with
lobbyists?
any
They've been
democratic or
presented in
government
this
principles
scenario
that have
as
been
vendors,
established
but
at
in
the
your opinion,
international level.
could they be
It also
perceived as
breaks
lobbyists, or would you
the
consider
Liberal
them
government's
lobbyists?
promises in terms of open government. Just to say,
were
made back in terms of all the changes that I continues to break recommended generally. I would hope the government party leaders will, as with Bill C-290, that open data join together and some information more proactively available. Act, the Lobbying Act, online to Interest Act is the same thing as open government. Other democratic government measures, is like Bill C-290, right to access information. The government wants to majority in the House. Open data is passing, making these bills. Information the government wants and the Senate to vote against them more available. They're not the same thing. In terms of this government, GC strategies has a record of. First of all, there's not supposed to be any lobbying. The information procurement processes documented and has broken ask questions. Open government promises, except a couple government institution that is contracting out, and then the answers will go to all the bidders. So that is a registry of who asked the question, what the answer was, and that's all that's allowed. Otherwise, you're lobbying. You are communicating in respect of decisions, and the big, huge loophole in that the Lobbying Act, unfortunately, is that if you are not paid for the lobbying, you do not have to register. So if you have a contract that says, I'm just providing strategic advice to you, and you're paying me for the advice, any lobbying I do for you is free, then you cannot be prosecuted under the Lobbying Act because you have not been paid for lobbying. It's a loophole that has to be changed, along with several other loopholes, to ensure that all lobbying is disclosed and secret lobbying is illegal. And that's one of the big problem areas in this and many other policymaking processes, that secret lobbying, also if the Lobbying Act doesn't apply to you, you can unethically lobby. So you can provide gifts and assistance to people that you are trying to get government decisions from because you're not covered by the Lobbying Act and therefore not covered by the Lobbyist Code. Until these loopholes are closed, as I said, the system is the scandal. Expect more scandals because the system encourages them.
Thank you. Mr. Terrazzano, in a Globe and Mail article published on August 2nd of this year, you stated that we want the government to really go a step further and ensure that maximum transparency is built into the contracts and negotiating process, so businesses know up front that if they are going to take taxpayers' money, then they're going to be required to be transparent with the public. Do you agree that subcontractors should be included in ATIP requests?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, especially with this, when we're now talking to have a total bill of $54 million for a simple app. How do we know it's a simple app? Because two independent techies were able to build it or recreate it over 2 days. So I think taxpayers have every reason to be scratching our heads right now, wondering who is going to be held accountable for this $54 million scandal. And I think one of the reasons why all of this happened is a lack of transparency.
Do you think that government departments should be aware of any subcontracting relationships that stem from the federal funding of private suppliers?
Yeah, sure. I absolutely think there needs to be more information.
How would you recommend that the federal government increase its oversight into subcontractors without undue administrative burden and to ensure that the federal government is not overpaying for its services?
Okay, a couple. So number one, the Information Commissioner on the Government of Canada's review published in January 2021 makes a great recommendation for this. Recommendation number 2 is essentially that agencies that are getting these outsourced contracts be subject to the access to information. Right now, one of the access to information requests we got back, tons of redactions, and the government is essentially using Section 16 and Section 19 to withhold information that the public deserves.
And in your opinion, what's the impact on Canada's economy when contracts are given to private suppliers to then subcontract this work rather than focusing on in-house solutions?
I'm afraid that is our time, but maybe you can answer that in writing to
Thank you,
the
Chair.
committee.
All right, we have definitely a lot more procurements are going to be happening right while this little investigation goes on. Looks like someone they overcharged the government like every contract. Who knows what happens? What do you think? Leave your comments down below, like, subscribe, and have a good day. MP Kusie and MP Johns definitely stole the show on this one. Of course, there were other questioners. It was a few hours, right? Silk. Smooth as silk.